the Forgotten Kingdom of World of Warcraft. That's right, guys. Look, we're going back into some old world shit with Midnight. We're doing Eastern Kingdoms, specifically northern half of the Eastern Kingdoms. A lot of revamping going on. A lot of really core lore to World of Warcraft. If you look at the upper half of the Eastern Kingdoms, we're talking about places like the great ancient, Alterak kingdoms. We're talking about Lordaeron. We're talking about Gilneas, Silvermoon, the Amani trolls. Like, there is so much lore packed into that upper section. We're going to dive straight into even more lore here. We got some more shit going on there here. Let's hear about the Forgotten Kingdom of World of Warcraft from Nixium.
So far, we have traveled across Tirisfal Glades, Silverpine Forest, and now, nestled amongst the trees and mountains of Hillsbrad and Alterak, we have had the pleasure of remembering the wars fought on this land. We have fled from ogres, and we have delved into the forgotten alchemy practiced in the shadows by the Forsaken. But as we have traveled these lands, there has been an elusive enemy that has been stalking us the entire way. Concealed in the darkness of the mountains and hidden away in Hillsbrad's tall grasses, this particular enemy is a proud foe who will suffer none to enter his land uninvited. But alas, how quickly we are to forget this dangerous enemy lurking in the mountain's fog. That's why today, everybody, let me introduce you to one of Classic WoW's forgotten
cozy, guys. We're going to get into a nice tale here.
They serve. Before we begin, I do have to thank this channel's sponsor, Zygor, who is linked down below in the description. It is World of Warcraft's Ultimate Guide add-on, and if you decide to check them out and you enjoy the product, use code Nixium for 20% off. High above the Hillsbrad foothills is a reach of mountains towering over the surrounding land. Blanketed in an eternal winter, these spires of stone and ice were the seat of a once mighty kingdom. Proud in its history, Alterak stood for generations alongside its neighboring sister kingdoms, Lordaeron, Stromgarde, Gilneas, and others, a kingdom carrying the legacy of...
Look at that. Look at that shit. This is what I'm talking about when I talk about the upper half of the Eastern Kingdoms. Gilneas. I forgot about Dalaran even. Dalaran, where it originally came from. Alterak Valley. Stromgarde. Lordaeron. And then you go further north, as I was saying, you got Silvermoon up there. There's so much shit happening in that small part of Azeroth, the old Azeroth, original OG Azeroth. But it's so important because there's so much fucking lore that happens up here. A ton of stuff. That's why I think it's a great thing that we are going back to this part of the world.
Arathor and Strom from years past. But they are a topic for another day when our path takes us east into the Arathi Highlands. It was the people of...
Old Dalaran could be... I hope that they rebuild Dalaran. I hope that they build it on the ground. I don't want floating rock, a butt plug Dalaran flying around anymore. I want, like, grounded Dalaran because the real version of it is way bigger. It actually goes out. There's multiple rings to Dalaran. It used to be way, way bigger. The floating version of it is just the central piece of Dalaran that we've seen. I want to see, like, a full-blown mage city. That would be badass as hell. I don't know if we'll get it, though.
Alterak, who negotiated trade between their neighboring kingdoms and the dwarven Longbeards, and it was they who Stromgarde considered their greatest rival in the region. Often, these two kingdoms would clash due to politics or disagreement, and little to no ground would be gained or lost between them. So resilient were those men of the mountains, Stromgarde's sons found themselves often buried and forgotten beneath the great depths of Alterak's snow. Banners of orange waved proudly in the winter's blizzards and could clearly be seen for miles around within the summer fog that blanketed the land. That was the kingdom of Alterak in its day, a jewel of the north of the Eastern Kingdoms, perhaps destined at one point to be a nation greater than all others. And yet corruption.
This is honestly, like, I'm not a vanilla Andy. I'm not a classic Andy. I did enjoy vanilla WoW when I played it back in the day. But, like, one really cool thing about the original WoW and, like, the time that they put in to make the original worlds in Azeroth is how much fucking lore there is behind it all. Like, you walk through these abandoned villages, these towns that look completely burnt up, these kingdoms with their fallen walls, and there's stories behind all of it. all of it has reason, all of it has story. There's like a very dark shit that happened in a lot of it, and it's really cool to learn some of this stuff and actually realize like, oh yeah, I'm doing a quest here and I'm killing all these guys, but there's this entire backstory about how the Scourge invaded this area and this whole village fell apart, and it used to be this proud place where it was the breadbasket of the Eastern Kingdoms or whatever. Like, there's so much cool stuff that happened in this game. And there's so much lore that happened in this game, and it's just all told through little quests and little regions that you adventure through.
Horde has a way of slithering into men's hearts like a serpent, especially when a kingdom is faced with so terrible of foes seeking its ruin. In a time of great peace, when Alterak was delighting in its prosperity, that is when the orcs came. When the dark portal opened in the south and ruin came to Stormwind, word reached the north quickly of the city's destruction. The savage greenskins, corrupted by yet-to-be-understood demonic magic, stormed through their accursed waygate and wreaked havoc on all those who stood in their path. The villages surrounding Stormwind fell first, and soon the city itself. The stone walls melted from how great the fires burned, and the orcs, drunk with battle lust, spared none as they washed through the city streets like a rising tide. No soldier they spared, nor woman nor pink child. The orcs delighted greatly in the honor they won for themselves that day. But in the north, however, the human kingdoms were greatly disturbed. Refugees from Stormwind fled north. Those who survived braved the cold of the Khazmadan mountains, as well as the shivering seas and harsh storms offshore. When the survivors landed in the Northlands, they told their terrible tale of the ruin of their homes and the death of their king, assassinated by the orcs, they said. Now all the leaders of the northern human kingdoms met and discussed what to do, lest they be afflicted to the same terrible fate.
Right, I believe that we've seen a cinematic of this meeting. It happened in Lordaeron, right? And you see Arthas Menethil's king, Tyrion Menethil, sitting up there in the throne room, and then Medivh shows up and then kind of forewarns them of these orcs that are coming. If you guys remember that shit, and later on we learned Medivh was kind of corrupted, right? And he was just doing all this shit, playing his role in it. But the human kingdoms, they all kind of took it as like, oh, well, are we going to deal with this threat? Is Stormwind really that big of a deal? It fell, but we won't fall. And then later on, more shit came, and then the Scourge and everything else. And yeah, really, a lot of these human kingdoms ended up falling. Or they went internal like Gilneas, where they just built a wall and decided to isolate themselves.
Peasant, noble, and king were all united by their terror, for the Horde would soon sail and march north. Something had to be done. There was a great summit that was called the Meeting of Seven Kingdoms: Alterak, Dalaran, Lordaeron, Gilneas, Kulturas, Stromgarde, and the remnants of Stormwind. And together, these 7 groups decided that if they were to survive the orcish invasion of Azeroth, they would need to stand united.
They would need to form an alliance. That's right. The beginning of the alliance.
Alterak, however, for reasons of their own, were cautious about getting entangled in this conflict. After all, their mountains were high and cold. What would orcs care for their lands compared to the rich and fertile territories of their sister kingdoms? It was King Aiden Paranold of Alterak who raised a voice of opposition to this military union of the 7 kingdoms. He pushed instead for negotiation with the Greenskins, but his word was quickly shot down. These were monsters, it was shouted, with no thought or sense behind their blood fury. They could not be negotiated with. War was the only language these savages could speak, and King Aiden reluctantly went silent.
Ooh. Yeah, this is where the WoW movie messed up. Look, the WoW movie, I think, tried too hard to tell both sides of the story. I think if the WoW movie had stuck to an orcish invasion and focused on the human kingdoms and how they were reacting to the invasion, for one, it would have been much more relatable to a regular audience who didn't know really anything about World of Warcraft, much like many regular audiences were introduced to Lord of the Rings through the movies. Like, they didn't read the books. Most people who went and watched the movies had never even fucking picked up a book called any of the Lord of the Rings series, but they learned the story through the movie. Imagine that movie had tried to tell the story of the background story of the orcs and where they came from and the Uruk-hai and all this shit, it would have fallen so flat. Hogster, thank you for the follow and welcome to our Scourge. But anyone can easily relate to these human kingdoms fighting against this threat, this army that's just coming and destroying everything. And that would have been a much easier story to tell, would have been much more relatable, and probably cooler. Supposedly, the original version of the WoW movie was supposed to be told from an Alliance perspective, and I think you could have eventually went and told the orc side, but maybe later on down the line. I don't think they should have started with it, and that's where that movie was just kind of broken. It was just trying to do too much all at once.
Sages could speak, and King Aiden reluctantly went silent. The Second War, as it's now called, saw the involvement of some of Alterak's soldiers who felt patriotic for kingdoms they had never known. They were men of Azeroth, humans, and their brothers and sisters in lands afar had suffered tremendously in the south.
Big dick, testosterone-filled men.
This is what motivated them to board ships and take up positions in battalions to go and fight the savage horde. Whatever the reasons, compared to Lordaeron and Stromgarde, Gilneas, and the other kingdoms, Alterak sent little in the form of assistance south, something that greatly displeased the other kings of the north.
And mind you, Alterak was like the most powerful probably of all the human kingdoms back then. Like Lordaeron was like the capital of, you could think of Lordaeron, I don't know how to describe it.
We have a realm to destroy.
Draga, thank you for the follow. Welcome to our Scourge. Probably Lordaeron was like really like an intellectual capital, right? Like that's kind of how you could describe it. They had a very strong army and everything else, but the Alterak kingdom was much more like battle-hardened. Army, they had the manpower, they had all that shit. So them not joining in this fight was a big blow to the Alliance for sure.
It was during this
Gilneas was rich, yes, in commerce and stuff, no doubt.
Conflict with the orcs and their twisted magics that the Alliance saw a number of great victories, but also terrifying defeats. The orcs, driven by their lust for conquest, but also exploration of this foreign world, made their way north until they arrived at the southern reach of Quel'Thalas, the home of the High Elves.
Yeah, this is where we get some midnight lore coming in for sure. Kul Tiras too. Kul Tiras was known for their fleet, right? They were known as to have the strongest fleet of any of the human kingdoms. By fleet, I mean their naval fleet. That's what they were known for. This dude has an ASMR voice. He does. It's a good story.
And it was then, as the orcs began to clash with elven steel, that King Aiden Paranold of Alterak found that a shadow of doubt had crept its way into his evening rest. His dreams became nightmares, and his days were filled with discussion with hopeless nobles. If the ancient power of the elves could not stop the orcs, it was clear that humanity could not either. And that is when something changed in the noble hearts of Alterak's leaders. Fear for safety became paranoia, and obsession with death became panic solutions to problems hundreds of miles away. On a fateful day, the king of Alterak contacted the war chief of the Horde, Orgrim Doomhammer, and attempted to do what he had suggested all that time ago in council with the other kingdoms.
Negotiate with the greenskins? Puss-ass move. Ridiculous to think he could have... Look, I mean, he could have negotiated with regular orcs, no doubt. But fel-infused orcs who had just drank the blood of Manaroth and now are fucking on a tear? Probably not. Now, Orgrim... I don't believe Orgrim... Did Orgrim and the Lord drink the blood? He may have not, so he may have been the most level-headed of the orcs that remained. But outside of him, I mean, everyone else was just blood-crazed and wanted to kill everything. Orgrim didn't drink, right. So if you were going to negotiate, that's what I thought. So if you were going to negotiate, Orgrim would have been the one maybe who could have some reason. But good luck having him return to a horde that is fel-infused, going off on fucking crazed blood magic is going to be able to be, to talk to in a reasonable way. They just wanted to go to war.
The king tried to negotiate for the survival of his kingdom. Discussion went long into the night, but when all was said and done, Alterak agreed to allow the orcs to pass freely through their mountains without fear of harassment. And in return, Alterak would be spared the orcish horde and would even be safeguarded by Doomhammer once the other human kingdoms were conquered. Historians agree that whatever noble character Alterak had, it died on that day. For it was after this dark agreement was struck that further corruption spread through the high mountains.
Well, they betrayed their fellow humans, right? They totally allowed them to be backdoored and fucked up. Alterak could have held the line there in the mountains. That a lot of orcs would have died in that mountainous region had Alterak actually formed up an army and defended it. But instead, they allowed them through, which just led to freaking thousands and probably, I don't know what the numbers would have been back then, but surely millions of deaths of other humans in their other kingdoms.
Alterak became responsible for harassing alliance caravans, for plotting assassination attempts, and even guiding orcish war vessels at sea. But it was only after the Battle of Crestfall did the alliance truly discover the degree of betrayal that they had suffered. Survivors of the battle, Alterak soldiers, were captured and interrogated, who revealed what had happened in King Aiden's court. And when the news of this scheme between Alterak and the Horde had fully spread across the Alliance's war tents and council chambers, all eyes became set on King Aiden's high, white mountains. Alterak, as far as the other kings of the Alliance were concerned, was to be brought to ruin, along with their filthy Horde allies. And so it happened. Stromgarde marched on Alterak first, and then Lordaeron, led by King Taranis himself, and the once mighty Alterak kingdom, high-seated amongst the snowy peaks, was brought low by the combined power of the Alliance. The orange banners burned in the night, and the fog retreated from the hills to reveal all of the secret dealings that had occurred in this land. Many of the king's loyalists fled, and yet, despite the city's destruction at the hands of its former...
So all of these like fallen ruins, these small burnt villages, the fallen walls of Alterak, all of that is a story of betrayal, right? The Alliance going back and taking down this kingdom that had openly betrayed them. Clearly, not only was that massive deal made with the Horde that allowed them to go through and kill their people, but then there was all this backdealing and shadowy shit going on in Alterak. So what was it right? I'm sure a lot of civilians died. I'm sure a lot of people died that had nothing to do with the deal itself. But unfortunately, they were under a king who had clearly fallen to a bad decision that led to millions of deaths.
Allies, the king of Alterak and those who remained continued to honor their pledge to the Horde, hoping, praying, and dreaming that the orcs would pull off a great victory and bestow lands and honors on Alterak and their king. Yet, no such victory ever came. In the aftermath of the Second War, after the Horde had been defeated, Alterak fell into greater ruin. King Aiden, who had been placed under house arrest and stripped of any true authority that he once commanded, he died in his sleep. His kingdom, however, now under Alliance martial law, became a den of banditry, murder, and degeneracy. Men starved.
Sounds like a streamer kingdom.
In the winter's cold, and those who were smart did what they could to flee the dying lands. That is when ogres crept into the ruins of Alterak's villages and city like maggots on a corpse. The local Yeti population exploded in their numbers, and the mountains soon became too dangerous to travel through alone.
You see how great and deep this all goes? Like, even the mobs that currently exist in these zones, there's a story behind them. Right after Alterak fell, the ogres came in and took over the ruins. You had a Yeti population that was probably controlled by the Alterak people, right, through hunting and everything else, suddenly explode, and that's why there's so many Yetis in the region and everything. There's just a story behind every NPC, every tree, every building, and you just don't get that same, like, what kind of stories are going on in Dornegal, or, you know, that entire region right now. It just feels like a lot of it's just, like, placed shit on a map. But this was, like, all thought out. There's just deep story in every single building and placement of every single NPC.
During the events of Classic
That's why I'm
WoW,
excited
the
to go back
condition of
to these
Alterak
zones.
is what you see here, one of destruction. For King Taranis and the Alliance showed this kingdom no mercy for its betrayal. And yet, my friends, although the failure of King Aiden Paranold led to the doom of his land, there still remained a remnant of his people, now led by Aiden's son, whose name was Aladin Paranold.
That's an interesting one, Doc, and this is why the better Arathi left the mainland. They knew the Old Kingdom was going to turn out this way. Well, suppose you're talking about the Arathi that we are maybe going to see in Midnight at some point or something on the other side of Azeroth, and there is a story behind them, and that these were the Arathi in touch with the light. And supposedly the light had given him a vision of maybe what was to come of their kingdom and a reason to go to the other side. Right, the other side of Azeroth. We're going to meet those guys. You got to remember, those guys left before the great fall of all these human kingdoms. So the last time they were here, maybe generations ago, those people had known these human kingdoms to be a great civilization. They left it all behind with this vision of the light, and evidently the Night knew this was going to happen and built their kingdom that we haven't seen yet on the other side, currently led by, what do they call him, the Light Emperor or something like that? They're sitting over there, so maybe we're going to get some of that new lore in the game.
And it was Aladin, after his father's death, who came to the conclusion that the Horde truly were savage beasts who never should have been regarded as allies of Alterak. For the prince blamed the Horde for the doom of the kingdom, believing that the orcs had failed to protect Alterak as they had pledged to do. And then there was the alliance, the so-called sister kingdoms that had descended upon Alterak in their fury and put its people to the torch. That is why those who remained in the mountains, led by Prince Aladin, they began to call the Horde, yes, even Thrall's Horde, and the Alliance, their mortal enemies. They sought only to restore the glory of their former land through whatever means they could. And now, everyone, we arrive to it at last, the shadowy enemy that has followed us through this entire adventure in Hillsbrad Foothills and Alterak Mountains. This was the birth of the Syndicate, one of Classic WoW's lesser-known factions. No doubt while roaming in Hillsbrad Foothills or the Alterak Mountains, you have encountered these orange face mask-wearing stealthed rogues and
they have the orange banners across their face.
Sorcerers holding on to what
Quested and
little
killed some
remains of this land. Strombrad is a place of great operation for them, as well as camps all across the Alterak Highlands in the north. And it is there, during Classic WoW, that one can find Aladin Paranold scheming and brooding on ways to reclaim his kingdom, not with honor or valor on a battlefield, but with treachery and cutthroat tactics on the road. Or perhaps something far darker. For you see, one of the adventures that we can go on during Classic WoW is a mission to assassinate this aspiring king. And while doing this quest, something can be discovered that likely most players overlooked. Before I tell you this though, I just wanted to say, if you're enjoying the video, please consider hitting the subscribe button, as we are nearing 500,000 subscribers on this YouTube channel. And if you want to show further support, become a channel member and get access to behind-the-scenes videos, or get yourself a Tales of Warcraft shirt over on our merch store. But now, let's continue. Downstairs from where the would-be king is located is a mysterious orc, and his name is Nagaz. Now, who is this orc? Why is he present with the Alterak prince and his nobles? Well, these answers are not quite so apparent at first. Perhaps he's just a former ally from the original Horde? We're not entirely sure. And we wouldn't know the answer to this question.
I wonder if there's anything behind the fact that he's got like orange ties in his hair and he's got some orange armor. If he's aligned with these guys, the Syndicate.
Unless we happen to stumble upon a certain encrypted letter held by the Syndicate far to the south of where Nagaz can be found. For it's here at one of the Syndicate camps that a letter can be discovered resting on a table.
Little tidbits.
And upon trying to read it, we would discover that this letter is magically encrypted, its contents unreadable, and a mystery. Now, we would then go on a short but lengthy quest chain, at least in regards to traveling, that would allow us to discover the mystery of what this letter says. And once it's revealed, we learn all about this mysterious orc hiding away with Prince Aladin Paranold. And although I could simply just go over what the letter says, perhaps it might be better for me to just read the letter to you all, and you can tell me if you notice something odd or curious about what is written.
Okay.
This is what the encrypted letter says.
Greetings, Master. Forgive me for the method of sending this message. My shadow mages in Alterak are intent on their tasks, forcing me to use a foreign messenger, conscripted from one of our new allies, to bring you this report. But I have encrypted this letter with one of our most esoteric ciphers. Its words are safe from these yokels. Our plans progress well. As mentioned, we made an alliance with a group of humans who call themselves the Syndicate. Its leaders were once the nobles of Alterak, and they crave to once again hold sway here. And so they have struck a bargain with us. A bargain they will regret.
Shit.
Today, the Syndicate holds little power in these lands, but they know the area well and have assembled sufficient manpower for the tasks ahead. With proper guiding, I am confident that soon the Syndicate will again rule Alterak. In addition, we have urged the Syndicate to aim for the city of Stromgard in the nearby Orothi Highlands. The city is a battlefield between our forces, ogres, and the humans of Stromgard, but we feel that with careful tactics, we will own this once great city. And when that is done, the next stage of our plan may begin. With a nation of our own and a base of power in this region, we may then prepare the way for the third host.
Third host?
Soon, the Legion Lords will reward our works by raining fire from the skies once again. The Council was wise to appoint you head of the Argus Wake, marshal of our strategies in the land of humans and dwarves. And I am honored to serve as the hand of your will in Alterak. In Sargeras' name, Nagaz, Argus Hierophant.
Damn. This was all in that fucking letter? What does it all mean? At first, I'll be honest, when he talked about allies very early on in this letter, for some reason, right away, I thought of the Void. Right here, conscripted from our new allies. I thought maybe he's talking about some shadowy Void shit going on here. Because clearly, I mean, he's talking about Sargeras. These guys are like Burning Legion aligned and all that. But you got to remember, shadow whispers and all kinds of shit, that stuff was still going on back then. So who could these allies have been? And then the very interesting part at the end, whatever the hell that was, coming of the third something. Yeah, preparing the way for the third host. Who the hell is the third host? Who were the first two hosts? What is he talking about? That's a crazy-ass, lengthy-ass letter. Interesting. Dreadlords? I was thinking there could be some Dreadlord involvement too, maybe. It'd be really cool if we get more in depth with this story and going forward. I mean, we know Stromgard was completely rebuilt, right? Like, these guys clearly in Classic never ended up taking over Stromgard completely. It ended up being taken back and built up from its ruins again. So what happens with Stromgard going forward? Maybe there's some relevancy in Midnight at some point. We'll see.
Garrus's name, Nagaz, Argus Hierophant.
We did have that Stromgard questline, yes.
As already mentioned, since Alterak's doom, those who remain have sought to rebuild their former kingdom, to restore it to the glory that it once had before it was felled by the surrounding nations of the Alliance. And in their attempts to restore what was lost, clearly the people of Alterak, their prince included, have turned to darker dealings with a group called the Argus Wake. Now, for many of you, likely you've never heard of this particular organization, and you shouldn't blame yourself for it, for this is, well, admittingly, this is the only quest or mention of the Argus Wake in all of Classic WoW. Everything that we know about them comes from this one letter and this one quest chain, yet it does reveal
I wonder if it's going to be relevant again or if it was just forgotten. I mean, Argus Wake, clearly relevant, to Argus, again, the headquarters of the Burning Legion and all that shit. I wonder if these guys are ever going to be relevant again. I mean, we went and destroyed all that stuff. So who knows?
A bit. Clearly, the Argus Wake are involved with the Burning Legion, hence the name, and it is a part of the Legion.
Could it be the first hosts or the ones who came before the Titans? Oh, so you would say it would be the people, the things that were there before the Titans would be the first host, and the Titans would be the second, and the third host would be whatever comes after the Titans, maybe the last Titan? Ooh, oh shit! Is there a tie-in here? Are we tying all this old lore together? Maybe.
Scheme for Alterak's remnant to reclaim their kingdom, which the Argus Wake would likely have great hold over, especially considering the presence of how many dark sorcerers are now present in the Syndicate ranks. Clearly, this shadowy organization has been busy with teaching forbidden magic. It's also assumed that the Argus Wake, like the Searing Blade and the Cult of the Darkstrand, is a smaller organization controlled by the Greater Shadow Council. Yes, indeed, the same Shadow Council that operated within the old Horde during its initial invasion of Azeroth, the same group overseen by Gul'dan, who is called the Darkness Incarnate. Before his death, of course. And this will not be the only time that we encounter the manipulations of the Shadow Council as we travel across Azeroth together. Now, I'm sure that many of you are curious of what happened next with Alterak, as well as the Argus Wake after Classic WoW. And sadly, there isn't really much to say. The Syndicate and the remnants of Alterak have only continued to lose more and more ground since Cataclysm, leading all the way up into the current expansion. Sometimes they appear here and there, but the Syndicate only comes as simple bandits to be disposed of with ease, usually in the Arathi Highlands, rather than former soldiers and militia of a once proud kingdom.
Interesting.
And as for the Argus Wake, they themselves never appear again in the lore as an actual organization, but Nagaz makes a reappearance in the Legion expansion as part of the Warlock's Scepter of Sargeras artifact weapon quest chain. Originally, he is presented as an ally to the Warlock player in Legion, assisting him with acquiring the Book of Medivh, until Nagaz betrays the player and attempts to kill him. Now for doing so, of course, Nagaz is killed by the player, and hopefully for good this time, because apparently getting his head cut off in Classic WoW wasn't enough to put an end to this orc's schemes. But I guess he was just soul-stoned. But I don't know. For many, the mountains of Alterak remain an out-of-the-way zone in Classic WoW, rarely visited because so many of its quests require great amounts of traveling. Players need to form groups to defeat the challenges of these hills, and the fact that this zone's story is so concealed and it's not so obvious upon entry. For most, when they adventure into the Alterak Mountains, they see only a ruined kingdom, populated now by ogres and a mysterious orange mask-wearing organization.
Right. There's a story behind it all.
Having watched this video, you have a better understanding of not only this kingdom's history, but this forgotten enemy, the Syndicate, from classic World of Warcraft. And like I said in my previous video about the Alterak Mountains, maybe you understand now why going here creates such enchantment for me. Now, I still have a video or two left in me about Hillsbrad Foothills and Alterak Mountains, but
great story.
I do wonder where we should go next. Should we travel north into the haunted woods of the Western Plaguelands, visit the dwarves of the Hinterlands, or perhaps head east into the Arathi Highlands to learn more about Stromgarde and its history? Let me know down in the comments section below, and if you want another video to watch after this one, I highly recommend this Silverpine Forest video that I made about one of Classic WoW's most powerful, if not the most powerful, villains. And now I think it's time for me to end this video with a very popular song that is sung all across the taverns of Azeroth about the fall of the Kingdom of Alterak. Thank you so much for watching, everybody.
Great video, man. It's such deep lore. Such good storytelling. It makes you feel like you're going on an adventure when there's this level of storytelling and intrigue and questing. Amazing stuff. Great video, yeah, great video. What a cool song, too. At the end of the day, the Syndicate and everything that's involved with it. We'll see what ends up happening with it, because we are going back to these lands in Midnight, right? All of this stuff's becoming relevant again in Midnight. If Blizzard does some kind of play with the Syndicate, maybe some kind of Dreadlord play or something else, I think it'd be really cool. I would love to hear more about the Syndicate. They're still there. They still have the goal of bringing back their kingdom after they feel like they were betrayed after their own betrayal. We'll see what ends up happening, but very, very cool video overall. And, nice song.
He marched his men on former friends.
Good stuff, yeah.
Loyal lives.
Your sea shanty about
steel is brittle stuff, and soon the tide did turn. The six came down like thunder's crown to make his kingdom burn.
Great stuff. I'll let this play out. I mean, you guys could see this song more later, but overall, like I said, the Alterak and all that stuff, the video and everything, really good stuff. Nixium does a great job telling these stories. He really does. This is the side of Nixium I love, where he gets into this deep lore and everything. We'll see if he becomes relevant again. We'll see how it all plays out in the end. But Midnight going back to this old lore, I'm personally excited for. Nice video from Nixium.